There we go. There's our project for tonight. These are picture frames. They start out turning them on the cutting out a round blank on the table saw. You wouldn't have to do that. I just find it easier. They have just a piece of hardboard for a back, piece of plexiglass for the glass. You could put regular glass in it if you want. Most people don't know how to cut round glass. I worked for a glazing company years ago and I learned how to do it, but a lot of people don't have that skill or the machine to do it. It takes a specialized cutter to do that, and they're expensive. So I would use plexiglass if it was me. So we're going to start out with a piece like this. Took it to the drill press. I drilled a hole in it with a Forstner bit that happens to fit my chuck, so I can expand out against it, and we're going to go from there. So look, these are two practice pieces. This is a third practice piece. This one is white pine, which is really pretty. This one is African mahogany, the dark one, and this one here is the piece of box elder. So you can do this on anything you want. It's all in tool presentation and sharpness of tools and all that. So, and it's not difficult. It's pretty easy. So on with the demo. I'm going to spin you around where I can see you. That looks pretty good. And I'm just going to put this on here. Get my light out of the way. Now these pieces I'm using are not perfectly flat. They're just boards that I had laying around. Some of them are twisted warped pretty bad. This one's a little better than most. Just make sure you got it on good and tight. It doesn't have to be perfectly true because you're going to true both sides eventually. So the side with the mortise is going to be your front. I'm going to start with the back. This will be the back side of the picture frame to start with. So I'm just going to flatten off the back. Face shield on. Actually, I won't put over my headset, so I'm just going to wear safety glasses, but normally I would wear a safety shield. Turn the lathe on here. So just a little bit. This piece is pretty balanced. I'm going to get it up to about 1300. I'm wearing long sleeves. This particular wood is African mahogany, and I'm allergic to it. So I'm going to try to only keep it on my hands. So I'm just going to start here now. Just do a pull cut. A little bit more. So I got this pretty well smoothed off. I'm not going to worry about this right here for right now, because that's going to disappear here in a minute. When you get it smoothed off, I bring my tailstock up. with a live center in it, or whatever center you want. And I'm going to make a poke hole in here, just so I know where the center is. Doesn't have to be very deep. It's just got to have a mark for the center that you can see. This has got to be a little more than that. Okay. So now you're going to create the outside diameter. So I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this. I have a cold jaws that only goes to 8 1/4 inches. So I'm going to make the outside of this. I'm going to true up the outside and make it 8 1/8, just so I can make sure I can get it in my cold jaws and get them somewhat tightened down. This is the tool I'm going to use. It's basically a compass. It's called a beam compass. It's what they use to do giant circles. I have an extension that can go on here that I can do real huge, large circles, giant circles. So it's just another way of doing a big circle. If you didn't have a way to do that, you could just make yourself a template and do it that way if you wanted to. Or try to measure it if you want. Grab this, the ruler. So when you set this compass, only one leg slides. So this is the point end, and this is the leg that slides. I just take a ruler. Take a ruler. I'm gonna slide this to 4 1/16 or thereabouts. Well, what I did is I hooked the point in the end of the ruler behind the little metal piece that's on this stick ruler, and set it at 4 1/16, which is half of 8 1/8, roughly. Now I gotta find that little poke hole. Just gonna draw a circle around there. Just like that. It's hard to see, so I'm going to take a white pencil, put it on that mark, and just carefully spin it by hand. Try to hold the pencil on the line best you can. Okay, there you go. Now I'm going to cut the outside of that down to match that. I'm going to take my live center out because I don't want to poke myself in the elbow. Now I'm just going to turn the outside down to that line. Being that I only have one camera angle, it might be a little hard to see, but we all know how to make a circle, I hope. Now you could do this with a skew. You could do it with a carbide cutter. You could do this with whatever you're comfortable with. I'm trying to teach myself how to use the bowl gouge, so I'm going to use the bowl gouge. I probably shouldn't do it in a demo, but gotta learn sometime, right?
That's right.
I'm just going to do a full cut across there. Quick cut back and forth till I get just about to the line. ways to go yet. Just gonna check just to see how it's cutting, make sure I'm not getting big tear out. Looks pretty good. I'm just gonna double check it with a ruler. It's pretty close.
Hey,
Close
Scott,
enough, I think it'll.
Scott, what was the thickness that you started with?
It's probably, hang on. About an inch and a quarter.
Inch and a quarter,
So
folks.
Yep, so it's rough sawn mahogany. I got a pretty bad piece of tear out on the edge, but it's in the thick part here. So I think a lot of this will go away when I do the face, because I'm going to eventually come down to almost 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to take it down just a little bit more. I don't want to go too much smaller because it messes with the face of your frame, the thick width of your frame. So try to get a little bit more of this out. Only in a demo, right?
Never fails.
But I have a trick that I might try if I can't get rid of it. So something I haven't done on the other frames. We'll see how it goes. So when you get it to this point, you got to sand the outside, because once you flip it over, you can't sand the other side. Well, I'm going to get a piece of 220. Give it a light sand. Is that too loud, Dane? Can you hear that?
No, you can't hear it.
Okay. What I did is I got a fan on the wall behind me, and it blows this dust away from my face. Normally I'd have my dust collector on, but you'd never hear me over that. I can guarantee that. So I'm just sanding this out with some 220, about 800-ish RPM. Doesn't have to be super smooth because we're gonna still gotta have to face the front off. So that's not too bad. Got a little tear out. Some of this I'll take out by hand when I go to finish if it's not real deep. Just because. So I'm gonna put a detail in here just to try something different. So all the rest of these frames are flat. This one I'm gonna put a little detail in it. I'm gonna take a small carbide and just put a little groove in there. Let's see how this works. I may regret it, but we'll see how it works. That's interesting. I just created a little detail in there. You can see that in the camera angle. Okay. I just put a little hollow in there. You can see that it's not centered, but it will be when I face this side off. And this side now I'm going to bring this around like this. And I actually flare this forward just a little bit so it creates a shadow line on the wall. Doesn't have to be much, just a little bit. If you're going to hang it on the wall, you don't have to hang it on the wall, obviously. But if you wanted to hang it on the wall, I'm just going to create just a little shadow line here. Like that. Pretty nasty tear out. Go ahead and a little differently. There we go. Got rid of most of it. A little more. Okay, the rest of that I'll get with the 220 sandpaper.
Mahogany's pretty dry, isn't it?
Yeah. Been in my workshop for 20 years probably, and it was kiln dried when I got it, so it's pretty dry. And it sands beautifully. Now this is the back, so you don't really have to worry about a lot of the sanding because you're not going to see it anyways. And you're only going to have just a little band left when you get done putting the ring in the back. So now, hopefully my little hole is still kind of there. This piece is, so there's two ways to do this. You can either mount it in your coal jaws or you can make a jam chuck. I'll show you how to make a jam chuck, but I'm probably going to do it on the coal jaws just because it's easier. If I was going to do these production, start turning these to sell, I would use the jam chuck because I can pop them on and off of here really fast. Do a whole bunch of these, flatten them off, cut the dado in the back that they need to cut, and then put the jam chuck in. By putting the jam chuck in, you lose the opportunity to take your scrap pieces and make something else out of them. Because you cut them down so thin. This one I did a jam chuck on, and the hole from the Forstner bit went all the way through. So you lose the opportunity to reuse a piece of the leftover piece. This is a piece I didn't do that, and it's thick enough to make a bowl out of. It's almost 3/4 of an inch thick. And if we got enough time at the end, I might make a bowl out of that for you. So now I'm gonna get my measuring tool back out, my beam compass. Now this radius is small enough that you can probably use a standard compass, but I'm going to use this because I have it sitting here. And I know that this disc, so when you determine the back of this, I'm going to put a 5-inch hole in the front, or a 5.5-inch hole in the front, sorry, for my picture. This disc is 6 3/4, which gives you a 3/8 lip all the way around your frame to hold your glass in your backing plate. Now, if you're going to put something else in here, you can adjust that lip accordingly. You know, you can do whatever you want. But this is from the places I looked at online that you can buy round picture frames. This is the dimensions that they recommended. So I didn't come up with that on my own. I stole that from other manufacturers. I want that to be lead cool. And I gotta put a piece of lead in my compass here. There we go. Oh,
I think I see it in shavings.
what's that?
I think I see it there in shavings.
Actually, this mahogany is so rough from not being planed first that it actually eats the soft lead off this compass real easy. So we want 6 3/4. So that's all I'm setting on here is 3 3/8. They're real close to it. Because we're going to sneak up on this to get that center in there. Now, if I can see my little poke hole, which is just barely there. I'll go around this again. I'll try to make the pencil line dark enough that I can see it without doing the white. This mahogany is so hard it wore that pencil right off already. Shot of white. Now we're not going to cut right up to that line right off the bat. We're going to sneak up on that line so we don't go over the size of our jam chuck. And this wood's got my nose running already. Crazy. I'm going to take a parting tool and just score me real close to that line. Parting tool's not real sharp, it looks like. I just got basically the outside edge scored. I'm gonna come back. You could do this with a negative rate scraper. You could do it with whatever you want. I'm gonna use the carbide because it cuts like butter. Now you want these. So the thickness of the plexiglass I used was 1/8 inch. The hardboard I used was approximately 1/8 inch. And then you gotta allow a little bit for your picture. So they recommended 3/8 of an inch. I'm just gonna, we're down to 1/4 already. I'll just sneak up on 3/8. And you can see how nice a finish this negative rate scraper or negative rate carbide does. Works really good for this. About a 1/16 of an inch more. You notice when I wipe this scraper off, I wiped it like this. If you go like this with it, you're gonna cut the heck out of your fingers. Ask me how I know. First time I used one of these, I thought I was gonna be smart and not touch those edges, but I did. And boy, was it sharp. Like cutting yourself with a really sharp scalpel. Just a little bit more. Just a 32nd of an inch. And this is important because your backing is basically almost flush on the back. So if you don't cut this deep enough, your back plate will stick out a little bit.
I had no problems.
Okay, I'm up to 3/8 of an inch now. Now if you're gonna flip it over to the faceplate, all you have to do is you have to take this lower than your outside edge out here. If you're gonna flip it over to the faceplate. If you're gonna use the jam chuck, you have to take the center out. Or take it down low enough to get your jam chuck in there. You don't have to go all the way down to the 3/8 depth, but you got to get enough so that you can get on your jam chuck at least 1/4 of an inch. Well, I'm going to do that just to show you that you can do it with a jam chuck rather than a faceplate. If you wanted to make these bigger and your faceplate doesn't go big enough, you'd have to use the jam truck method. So I'm just gonna take this and hog this material away. Doesn't really make any difference what the finish is unless you want to save it for something else. You have to remember you got a set of jaws in the backside, so don't go too deep with it either. Demonstration purposes, that should be far enough. This back on the track. Hold this back. See how close we are. We're not even close. Get this squared up as much as I can. Doesn't have to be right on top of it, but close. Now I'm going to take my, find it. I have a parting tool, skew. It's got a nice flat face on it. I have it honed flat. Instead of using sharpening it on a grinder, I've honed it flat so that it cuts on this upper edge here. So it actually scrapes the outside wall. You have to adjust my tool rest here, but we'll try it. Now I'm just going to sneak up on that white line. And this is a trial and error thing because you're making a jam truck basically. So this jam truck, I got it so that it's got a little taper on it. One side's a little thicker than the other. That's just in case you miss your diameter. Maybe the other side will work. You're basically using your skew like a negative rake scraper. Just get the head started. Try not to lose the edge. So see, I've missed it. But that's not a problem. We can still save it. So if you miss it, you could put some foam or paper towel around it if you wanted to. This is where it's nice to have a face plate. If you miss it, it's not a big deal. So now we'll flip it over. But I can miss it. I've missed it more than once. That's why I went to doing it on a face plate. It's easier.
Scott, when you're saying faceplate, you mean cold jaws?
Cold jaws, yep. I call them a face plate. I guess they're cold jaws. Sorry for the miscommunication.
Oh, no worries.
I'll set that. Break that loose because we're not going to need it anymore. Put this off to the side. Put this where you guys can see it. So I have the Tommy bar style right now. I haven't bought a set for my Nova chuck yet. Now we're just gonna flip this over. The inside groove is good enough. If you think you need to do more, you just do more. You really shouldn't have to sand it the way I did it, I shouldn't have to sand it. Now I'm just gonna flip this over. Got that just small enough to get in there. If you had bigger cold jaws, obviously you could do bigger picture frames on a bigger cold jaws. Just gonna get that snugged in there. Yeah. Still got a little groove in there yet. Enough before I get too far. Once you cut the back off, then it's going to be kind of a pain to reverse it if you had to fix it. Can be done. You don't want to squeeze super hard. Just want to make sure you're somewhat level. And just to make sure that this is on here tight, I'm going to grab this with my pliers. Okay. So now we're all set to do the other side. So now the first thing we'll do is face it off again. Now my nubs on this set of jaws, for some reason, Dane, it unhighlighted me again. So these nubs I have are roughly 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to stay just away from them just a little bit so that obviously I don't want to hit them. You don't have to cut right up to them if you don't want to. That's entirely up to you. The thickness of the frame is entirely up to you. You can make it as thick or as thin as you would like. Just to speed up the process here, I'm going to use the scraper again, or my carbide again. That appears to be pretty good. So you can leave this a little thicker and you have a little bit more room for detail. Cut me out again, Dane. So if you leave this a little thicker, you have more room for detail in the face. So you got to remember now you got this cut out here to 6 3/4. This is a good time to mark your 5 inches, your 5.5 inches. before you get too far. If you go too far, you've cut your center out, or you didn't want to cut it out. Well, I come along and I'm just gonna mark this again. And actually, I'm just gonna cheat. Come in here. 5.5 is 2 1/4-ish. Hold pencil straight.
5.5 would be 2 3/4 there, Scott.
Yep, you're right. Sorry, Billy.
Yeah.
You're right. Good thing you said something. I thought it looked awful small. There we go. That looks better. There. So this will be the outside of your rim. Well, I'm just going to finish cleaning this up a little bit from the white line. I got a little bit of rough board here yet. I'm not going to worry about what's on that side because it'll be gone. Thanks, Billy, for the help.
No problem, pal.
Just a little bit there yet. Probably isn't a big deal because when I make my pattern in here, it's going to be gone anyways. So now if you wanted to leave that flat, you can leave it flat. I like a little step pattern. You can do whatever pattern you wish. We'll see what we come up with because every one of these I've done, I haven't done 2 of them the same. Right, the bevel in there. A little hollow there. A little hollow here. Just remember, this is only, you got a 3/8 groove in the back of there. So when you get out here at this 5.5 inch mark, you know, you got thin, so you don't want to cut through here. Not yet, anyway. Round this over a little. Kind of like that detail, so I think I'll leave it for now. Now I'm going to go back to my carbide tool. Remembering that this line, this thin line, is where I want the hole in the picture frame to be. Sneak up on that. Give myself a little room in here to work.
You gotta go outside.
Somebody say something?
Just not Mike.
So I'm listening for the sound now. Listening for it to get tinny like a snare drum. Then I know I'm just about cut through, and I'll switch to a different tool to cut it the rest of the way through so you don't get the tear out on the back. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, or did the mic muffle it out?
No, you could hear it.
Okay, that resiny click tells me that I'm real close to being through. So I'm just going to give it a little more. Here on the edge. After you make a few of these, you'll get used to that sound.
Yeah.
And
It's
you'll
the
know.
sound of funnels.
Yep, it's the sound of a funnel. That's exactly it. So you can use one of two tools to finish that through, so it doesn't tear out. My preferred choice is this one. After I started doing a few of these, this one seemed to do the best. But not everybody has one of these. This is a diamond tool, easy wood diamond tool with the sharp point. But you don't necessarily need that. You can do it with a parting tool and just use the very tip of the parting tool. Come in here. And there you go. That easy. And you just pick that piece out.
Was that actually your skew?
Or my skew, not my parting tool. You're right, Billy. So
Okay.
this is just a skew, and I just used the very, very point.
The toe.
Basically used it like that diamond wood tool for the point action. Now you can come and you can see this is pretty thick here. You probably don't want it quite that thick. So now you can come back with whatever tool of choice is, and you can finish making this inside detail just a little deeper. You're thinning the ring, essentially, is what you're doing. But now I can see where it is, where before I didn't know what the thickness was. Now I can tell. Now I can do whatever I want here. This wood is so hard that it doesn't really give you great shaving most of the time. It's really hard. So I'm watching this over here. See the thickness that I want. I like just a little bit of roll over here. That's a little detail. Sharpen that corner up just a little. Perfect. So now you can do this with your skew very carefully. I'm going to use the diamond tool because I don't want to make a catch and have Dane have to make a phone call. I lay it out of the way, and I'm just gonna give that back edge just a little touch with the tip of this tool. Clean that up. Get out of the way here. Put down where I can see. So now all that's left is sanding. And you've just made your first picture print.
How about
I
that?
don't know how long. I don't know how long it took me to do that, but it didn't seem like it was very long.
About 50 minutes.
Great
50 minutes.
demonstration. Thank
Yeah, nice.
Outstanding,
So-
Scott.
So you can, from this point now, you can sand it, do whatever you want with it. So when you have a piece left over, like even this piece right now, it doesn't look like I can see light through it. But you could reuse these and make a little bowl out of them, depending on how you cut the back. If you don't waste a lot of material here and you know you're going to use your coal jaws, you don't have to cut, you don't have to flatten this out so much in the back like I did on the one that I did for the demo here. You can leave this thicker here. It just has to be just enough below the face of this back that it doesn't sit on these coal jaws here, so that when this cuts through, it pops in. So I mean, it's just got to be a couple millimeters off this coal jaws, and then you have enough left to make another plate,
Cool.
another little bowl.
Yeah, you can make all kinds of 4-inch bowls and plates with that.
Yep, platters.
Saucer.
I think
And
this one.
and the shapes
one I
on the
think
frame, you can just the shapes on the frame, you can just go all kinds of places.
Exactly.
Texturing tool.
So
Yeah.
this one here, you can see I got just a little fine bead in it. This one here, oh, the lights are really washing it out. There we go. This one here is just a
Oh.
gradual. It's got a taper here down, and then this is flat. It has no bead in here, so you can make these any way you want. I've seen them online where they put a, like this one here. I just put that. You can't really see it on here. I can feel it, but there's
We can
that
see it.
little cove in there. You can put that little cove in there. And the guy that I watched do this online, and I can't remember what his name is, the YouTube channel. He was making his out of construction grade lumber, and he was leaving them, and they almost an inch and a quarter thick. And they looked really neat, an inch and a quarter thick.
Wow.
With all kinds of detail. But he also always made this inside, somewhere between 3/16 and no more than a quarter. This one's about a quarter now. This one's about 3/16 or a little less. And the rest of them are about 3/16. But this one, I think it's this one I actually got it to fit the jam truck. I think it was this one. One of these I actually did on the jam truck. I think it was this one. Yeah, it was this one. It actually jams on there. So you can do it on the jam truck as well. It's just a little more refining, obviously you got to be a little more careful. Or if you screw it up, you can put a piece of paper towel in there to tighten it up, or you go to your bandsaw, cut another ring, drill your Forstner bit hole all the way through so it runs true. I found if you drill the hole all the way through, they tend to run true right off the bat on a piece of plywood. And then you just cut your plywood down to match your ring. However you want to do it. So this one fits this. Like this side, it's snug. It's right on there. A little turn and it's not falling off. And I got to put pretty good pressure on it to get it off. Any other questions?
Yeah. Anyone else got any questions?
That is
Comments?
just awesome.
Nicely
Awesome.
done, Scott.
Thank you.
Great job.
So the average dimension, I'll just give you some dimensions that I got off that website. And I'll find the website before the end of the meeting and put it in chat. So that because the website was really cool where they showed the picture frames. They made oval ones and round ones and square ones. But in the description of the picture frame, they actually did a cutaway where you could see the detail in the frame. So that's where I got the ideas of how to do beads and coves and whatever. So a standard 5-inch picture frame usually has about 7.5 inch outside diameter. So your inner circle would be 5 inches. Your outer circle would be somewhere around 7.5. A 6-inch circle would be 8.5. 7-inch opening would be 9.5, and so on and so forth. Somewhere around those dimensions. I made this one 8 1/4 or 8 1/8 because obviously I can't get those any bigger. I'd have to get extensions or different plates to make them bigger, which I'm going to do at some point because I want to make some 10-inch picture frames with a bigger opening. So I will get that site and put it on the website and in the chat so that you can find it and look at there was probably 100 different details. Give yourself ideas on how to put details in there. I did buy a carbide beading tool, which I didn't use. I haven't tried it yet, so I wasn't going to do it in a demo. I did buy one of Easy Wood's carbide beading tools,
Yeah.
but I wasn't going to sacrifice something in a demo until I learned how to use it.
Chicken.
But you know what? Actually, using the skew or using the bowl gouge or spindle gouge to me is more satisfying than using a tool that cuts the bead and then you're stuck with that size bead.
True.